Welcome to Diabetic365, and today we have a special guest who is very familiar with the diabetic community. She is Cherise. She is the founder of DSMA on Twitter, and she has been diagnosed with diabetes from 2004. And let's get started. Cherise, thank you for being on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
So, 2004, you were first feeling very bad and you went to see the doctor, and how were you diagnosed with 1.5 LADA? Usually it's type 1 or type 2, so tell us your story.
Well, I was diagnosed in 2004. I had, sorry for the too much information, but I actually had a yeast infection that I could not get rid of. Over-the-counter medication didn't help, so I went to the doctor and I saw a nurse practitioner. And she said that I had diabetes, but she couldn't figure out what type of diabetes I had because I had positive antibodies like a type 1, but my pancreas was working like a type 2. So she sent me to, she gave me metformin and she sent me to an endocrinologist, and the endocrinologist is who diagnosed me with LADA.
So like that's when it was 1.5 LADA, or were you diagnosed first with type 1 and later again?
She didn't want to diagnose me. She sent me to the endocrinologist, and the endocrinologist diagnosed me because she didn't know what was going on. She never seen anyone that had a working pancreas with antibodies like a type 1. So she said that she's just going to give me, metformin, send me to the endocrinologist, and that's what she did. The endocrinologist, when I walked in the door, he said, "Hey, I think I know what you have. You have type 1.5 or LADA." And he did all the blood work and found out he was right. That's what I had.
Oh, okay. So what was your first reaction to this? Does someone in your family before have LADA, or were you the first?
I'm the only person who has diabetes in my family. It was shocking. I cried with the nurse practitioner because my husband was in Iraq at the time when I was diagnosed. So I cried with her, and she told me it's going to be okay. And then when I left the clinic, I called my mom and I cried with her as well. So I cried a couple of times. But after the initial cry, I already knew what I had to do. I didn't want to live because my stepfather has type 2, and he really didn't take care of himself. And I knew that I wanted to take care of myself, and I didn't want to go down that path that he was going down. So he was kind of like my motivator to take care of myself.
So you said your husband was stationed in Iraq at that time, and you're the only person. So, how did you manage only by yourself? It was very difficult time, right? So how did you do that?
It was difficult. It was a lifestyle change. Luckily, I was in the reserves, Army Reserves for 5 years, so I already knew, exercise, and I didn't eat bad, but I just limited my portions as far as my carbohydrates went. My mom, she works at a health clinic, so she checked my blood sugar for me the first time, but after that, I kind of got it down pat myself. It was a huge lifestyle change, but you know what? It wasn't cancer, it's something that I could live with. Every once in a while, it's a pain in the butt because, no matter what you do, you still, a high number or a low number can creep up on you at any given time. So I think once I figured that part out, I was okay. But I think the biggest change for me was actually switching from oral medication to insulin and using an insulin pump.
What are some of the things that you changed apart from cutting carbs?
Well, I stopped eating a lot of fried food. Like fried chicken, fried pork chop, fried everything. So I cut back on that and started using my George Foreman grill a lot more and started baking more. Now instead of frying my chicken in batter, I actually just fry it just a little bit without the skin to take away from, the breading, which carbs. Stopped eating a lot of bread because I ate bread not all the time, but enough to cause a problem. So I cut back on that. I started incorporating more fruits in my diet. But other than that, that's pretty much all the things I had to change because, like I said, I really didn't have bad eating habits. So from that standpoint, it was a little easier because I wasn't a snack person, a cupcake person. I think adjusting to eating more, because with the oral medication, you can't, because you only take a pill. I was taking a pill in the morning, lunch, and dinner. So in between, I had to eat between every meal that I ate. So that was an adjustment of eating more and eating less. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So you're watching your plate, the portion control and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I also read in a blog that you brought your A1Cs to 5 point something. So within 6 months, 5 or 6 months. So how did you do that? That's the difficult part.
Exercise. I was very hard on myself. Everything that I ate, I counted. So I would look on the back of the chips bag and say, okay, if I'm going to have this, then I know I can, 12 chips is 15 carbs. I only allowed myself for breakfast, 1 carb choice. Then I had 15 carbs for snack. Then I had 2 carb choices, which is 15 carbs for lunch. And then I would have my snack, which is 15 carbs. And then I would have no more than 3 carb choices for dinner. And then I would go to the gym every day at lunch for 45 minutes because I worked right around the corner from the gym. And the only thing that I would really do is the elliptical. So with that, doing the elliptical and cutting back, or should I say eating more but eating less, allowed me to maintain, that A1C. I haven't seen a 5 point, I think it was 5.8, 5.6 since I started insulin. And I think the only reason why I say that is because when I was on just taking oral medication, I didn't have anything to treat my high. So when I became insulin dependent, I was like, oh, okay, I can go, eat a meal and I have this insulin to treat it. Now I'm trying to train myself to go back to thinking, okay, I can't really fix this high, so I probably shouldn't really be eating this if I can't fix it. So that's what I'm trying to retrain myself to go back how I used to be pre-insulin pump.
So the next question is, the most difficult part in maintaining diabetes is your highs and lows. So how do you maintain that?
My highs, I am a lot better with my highs and lows during the week because it's more structured because it's a work week. On the weekends, not so much, but I usually try to at least go for a walk every day after work. Actually, let's take that back. Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I usually walk because Wednesdays and Thursdays are bad days for me. So I try to maintain by walking or getting some form of exercise. And if I know that I'm not going to walk, then I'll eat a really low-carb meal to maintain. As far as lows are a little different because you can't treat them. I mean, you can see them coming sometimes, but then sometimes you don't know they're coming, especially when you're asleep. So that one's a kind of a tricky question. I have a Dexcom, but I don't use it all the time because my insurance company, they don't pay for my my sensors, so I don't really use it all the time like I probably should. So lows are a little different because, like I said, you can't really see those coming. Sometimes they just come out the blue.
Oh, okay. So I also read in your blog that your husband came back from Iraq in 2005. So how did he adjust to you? He was not there when you were diagnosed, but when he came back, how did he adjust to you, and what was the support that he gave you?
He pretty much adjusted. It was hard, but he cut out a lot of stuff. He made the lifestyle change with me, which in turn is better for the household. I would say it was kind of hard for him in the beginning because he didn't know, what comes with the mood swings. Because, when you're high, sometimes you can be a little mean, or when you're low, you can be a little mean. So I think that was probably a huge adjustment. And then the eating habits, of course, we didn't go out as much. He probably got tired of me ordering salads all the time. But I would say overall in the beginning, it was kind of tough for him as well because, and here's the funny part. He came back from Iraq in 2005. In March of 2005, I found that I was pregnant April the 1st of 2005. So I went from just being diagnosed in June of 2004 to pregnant in April, of 2005. So I'm newly diagnosed with diabetes, no insulin pump.
Exactly.
And going through the highs and lows of pregnancy, I think that was the worst because, you really can't control your hormones. So, the further you go along, the higher your blood sugars can go. So, but I think that was probably a big adjustment. Now he's really good. Like if we go on a vacation or if we, travel anywhere, he knows exactly when to stop for me to get, when I need to eat. And it's funny because I'll say, hey, he was like, we're going to stop to eat. And I'm like, okay, let me check my blood sugar. And he catches it right on time. It's like 90 when I check it. So he's really good about that and knowing when I need to eat.
So you said you went through pregnancy when you were diabetic, like when you were diagnosed diabetes and later on after 1 year. So what were the challenges that you faced when you were pregnant with diabetes?
The highs.
The highs?
I would go high off of 20 carbs. My husband and I would be walking like at 10 o'clock at night to bring it down. So I would say the biggest challenge was the hormones and the highs. And of course, try not to blame myself because when your hormones and diabetes, they don't mix well, especially when you have a growing baby inside of you. So it's a little harder for that to happen. So that was the hardest. The further I got along in my trimester, the harder it got. But luckily I had my husband with me and he was out there walking with me at 10 o'clock at night most of the time.
That's good. So how did your physician play an important role when you were diagnosed with diabetes and also when you were pregnant? The relation with your doctor or the endocrinologist is like dating. If that doesn't work out, you have to move on.
Yes. My analogy is that to me, my endocrinologist is like dating. Seriously, if he doesn't treat you the way you're supposed to be treated or give you the type of advice that you need to dump him and move on until you find someone else. You always have to go, find the roughest doctor before you get to the diamond. So, yeah, I usually dump them if they don't help me and answer the questions that I have or if they're not familiar with LADA because doctors are important. Some people don't know how to be proactive in their care. And if people don't know how to be proactive in their care and the doctors get paid to take care of us and they're supposed to help us, and if they're not helping, I suggest you move on. So that's what I did. I moved to Indiana because my husband's in the military. And I was really comfortable with my endocrinologist that I went to in California. He knew all my needs. But coming here was a little different. The doctor wasn't familiar with social media, not that that's really important, but it helps a lot. And he really wasn't, his bedside manners were okay, but they weren't perfect for me. So I found a new endocrinologist, and I like him so far. I only had one visit with him, but I like him.